the other video I wanted to get to was, so there's a creator, Stevie Knight, which I talked about at the beginning. He made a video about this. He was kind of saying some things about Abba, and so Abba decided to do live stream with him. Now, I like Stevie Knight. He makes good content. He's not the most articulate or extremely well versed in these topics. And that's no shade at him. I'd love to have a conversation with him. But it shows in this live, and I'm playing this live stream that they did together. There's some things that Abba did that I think are not only unfair but are misleading, and they prove his point. But when you argue radical right versus center left, it's not that hard to be like, oh well, see, you guys are radical, or I say you guys, but I'm not a part of them. But it's easy to say, oh, they're radical, and see, this is why.
Watched our video and you had some critiques for it. So yeah, let me know what you think we was getting wrong in regards to how we handled this Charlie Kirk situation.
Well, I want to keep what I felt was wrong towards the end, but leading up to that, just think it's a differing in opinions, which is fine. That's what we're here for, man. But if I can recall correctly, the beginning of it, it was more like you were talking about how the right wants to, or we need to tone it down, or I don't want to say we, right? It was more like focusing on the right versus the left. You know what I mean? And you felt a way about, I'm assuming what your intent was, is focus on the right. Now we need to tone it down, and we're doing the same thing that the left was doing, bro. And where I differ in opinion with you as far as this whole situation is that I don't think anything should be toned down if we're highlighting, if we're focusing on the right people. You know what I'm saying? I think that the right versus left is being overhyped, which makes sense because we're divisive as hell in society, man. But the demons are demoning. You know what I mean? And regardless if it's right or left, I feel like, these people need to be held accountable, and we need to zero in on these individuals. And I don't think a toning down at all will work, given the climate.
Okay.
And, I'm not going to say I felt some type of way at the beginning when we're focusing on, like, the emphasis of your video was to highlight Charlie, and then you were trying to compare it to other things that may have happened that were similar.
Sure.
And I think that's taking attention away from, the elephant in the room, which is Charlie Kirk situation, which we never had a situation like this happen ever, because of the social media and the fact that everyone was able to see it. You know what I'm saying? And that makes the situation a whole lot different than anything that's happened in the past as far as a murder of this magnitude. And, it seems that you were minimizing the impact of what happened to Charlie.
Okay.
And,
What?
and
Yeah, go ahead.
well, I'm gonna keep rolling out. I'll let you.
No, go for it. If you're still on this one, I just didn't want to move from this topic, but
I don't want to roll out like 10 things and have you.
yeah. It's always better to go point by point. I think so.
Yeah, maybe we should go one for one.
Yeah.
So it felt like, from my end, it was a right versus left type of thing, and you know what I mean. From how you were describing it, right's doing this, the left's doing this, and you're saying it's hypocritical of the right to be complaining about the same things that the left is doing, or what the right is implying that we're doing. And to me, it shouldn't be about that. It should be about, we isolate, the evil, the degenerate shit that's going on. And when we try to minimize or just bring up the comparison between Charlie Kirk and everything else, it minimizes the tragedy that everyone just witnessed and like the impact it had on everyone, man. So I feel like it's deflecting from it, and it's like Charlie Kirk, his tragedy was important, but other things has happened, and the right was doing the same thing. So it's kind of like, no, it is to me, it's minimizing, what happened.
Got you. So I think there's 2 points in there. One being the hyper focusing on right versus left. You felt like we did that too much, and the second part is minimizing Charlie Dess's murder. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. So just to go to the first point. I did have that in my notes. I think in your video at around 2-minute mark, you said that I was minimizing Charlie Kirk's murder by comparing it to other political violences, or like contextualizing it in the way that I was doing. I don't think I'm minimizing it. I disagree with that characterization for a few reasons. I think I think it's natural when someone dies that we try to understand why. That's why people love murder mystery. That's why people, every time someone dies, they want to know who the perpetrator is. They want to know who their motivations are, because murder is generally something that we see as incredibly heinous. And so understanding what led to that is always important. When I'm not comparing, this is not the right word. What I'm doing is that I'm explaining away how our society led to this moment and this man, because he wasn't murdered in a vacuum. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was an individual who's incredibly troubled, and he decided to go out and murder somebody for their political opinions, their affiliation, maybe because they had mentally ill issues. Who knows? But there's a landscape, and there's a lot of things that lead up to this murder. It's always important to examine these things, because if we don't understand how we got here, then we're going to be doomed to repeat it. It's never, in my opinion, a bad thing to contextualize any world event, provided you contextualize it fully, right? That or at least you try to, because without context, then all that happened was that someone was shot. Context is everything.
Well, to that point, that makes total sense what you're saying, but to me, it didn't come across that way when you voiced that in the video. It seemed like you were trying to, highlight the divide between the right and the left, for whoever the instigators of it are.
And I'll help Stevie out here, which is one of the reasons I wanted to do this. Was he spoke about how, and we just watched that video too. Most of the political violences come from the right. That was a direct statement from Aba, even though right now he's saying, we need to apply context, and all that context needs to be, evaluated. Well, yeah, most of your context that you provided was all of the right. I can provide you with multiple contexts where you have people on the left, basically anybody on the right, a fascist. One of the shell casings or one of the bullets had catch fascist. That's a pretty simple correlation to make. Now, do you agree with that? Maybe not necessarily. Could you disagree with it? Of course you can, and I can understand that perspective. But to sit here and say that there's only one side doing it, and then providing the context only for one side, and then only stating, they both do it, but the right, is my point. And that's the part of the argument that's like, come on. You can't speak from this logical pedestal and then proceed to only speak about one side.
Yeah, like it didn't seem like you were trying to get to a root of the problem or how we're trying to fix it. It's like, like I said before, what you're saying now, if you had voiced it that way in the video, I wouldn't have had the mindset that I have in regards to what you said. But in the video, it didn't come across to me like that at all. It felt like,
well, right now the pervasive narrative, and this is where it comes to the left versus right thing, the pervasive narrative that's online and that's being espoused by some of the most important people in our political stratosphere, is that violence of a political nature is solely left wing. Okay. And I remember at about 3 minutes, 29 seconds, when Matt Walsh is talking in your video, you said that I was interpreting what he's saying. When he's talking about good versus evil, it's time for the righteous to prevail over the forces of evil. You were saying that I was making a left versus right thing, right? But that's just not true.
Hold on, let me make a correction, because you go further on in the video. I recognize that point. I said, hold up, if Matt Walsh is doing that, highlighting the left like this, that's unfair to do so. Then I went on to saying this makes the left look bad. It makes the transgenders look bad. It makes everybody affiliated to this look bad. It's like guilty by association. That's not the right thing to do. It should be a good versus evil thing.
One of the points that Stevie could have made here is also Matt Walsh never said left or right. He just said good versus evil. Now, there are good people on the left. There are good people on the right. There are evil people on the right. There are evil people on the left. So good versus evil doesn't pertain to a side, which is another thing where I think Aba is using an assumption in order to make his point. The reactions that people are having are evil, period. Whether you're left or right, should be considered evil.
Right, but then I went on, because you had a couple other videos of people uttering or echoing the same sentiments as far as, righteous and good and evil. But I did highlight Matt Walsh in that video specifically saying, all right, I see that he is describing the left in this manner, and that shouldn't be the move.
Right. But again, at about like 6 to 7 minutes in the video, you kind of do it again where you say that, that's how I'm interpreting a lot of this narrative of good versus evil. But it's not just Matt Walsh. Ben Shapiro said that most of the political violence today is flowing from left-wing movements and ideology. Elon Musk was on Twitter. He said, the left is the party of murder. If they won't let us live in peace, then our choice is to fight or die.
And I can agree with some of those things, but Going to the Ben Shapiro portion, ideology. He didn't say left-leaning people. The ideology, which you can challenge me on it and you can debate on it, but the ideology is a little bit scary sometimes. Some of the things that they're trying to do is, are there good things that they're trying to do? Of course. And there are a lot of things that on the left that I agree with. You know, there are a lot of social services I agree with. There's a lot of things that the left has done that has been productive for society. But there's also a lot of these extremist ideas that have come into our country as of late come from the left as well. Now, does the right have extreme ideas? For sure. But a lot of their extreme ideas, and I'm not defending them, I'm just saying a lot of their extreme ideas are about our country, are extreme only from the sense of they want the people in the country to get the most to get the benefits of this quote unquote extremists, where the left, their extremists, is more leaning and geared towards non-Americans. And I think that needs to be a distinction that's made. Both are still extremes.
Alex Jones said the right-wingers are in a war during a live stream. And he said that the left has been put a bullseye on Trump and he put a bullseye on his supporters.
They did. They literally did. They put a bullseye. He got shot at once and was almost shot at a second time. And they call him a fascist. And despite, you know, I don't agree with Trump on a lot of things, you know, and I don't necessarily like the way he conducts himself all the time, but they did. And I can see that. And part of the reason I've defended Trump in any time I've ever defended Trump is because I can see that. As someone who's on the left, I can see the transformation of how people, they don't care. Like, look at the Tylenol situation. Trump literally says Tylenol may be tied to autism, and now you have women who are pregnant taking Tylenol just because Trump said that it was bad. Like the inability to critically think and be able to say, all right, I don't like him, but this part of what he's saying makes some sense. Let me look into more of this.
Himself, during an interview, let's see here. Let me pull up the clip because I think it's just important to me to get the exact words that he said. On Fox and Friends, he says, we have radicals on the right as well. And he says, I'll tell you how, I can send you the clip you wanted. I'm going to just read it verbatim, his quote.
I believe you, though, bro.
I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see more crime. The radicals on the left are the problem. So when I'm talking about right versus left, I'm not talking about someone in a vacuum or someone at home. I'm talking about the most important people in our political discourse framing most of this violence as I only left. And what you did in the video, and I did appreciate, is that when we said, if you look at the numbers, you know, people got mad because I quoted the ADL, but there's all sorts of things from FBI statistics to different organizations who track terrorist attacks. Most of it comes from religious extremists and then right-wingers. Left-wingers at the bottom of that list, especially.
He does it again, from right-wingers. No, radical right. The same way the radical left has its own people who are fucking nuts. You got to distinguish. It's not the right. It's not. The radical left is not the left. They're the radical side of it.
Over the last 10 years. So I'm not trying to frame this as left versus right. That's the plate that's already been set. Since Charlie Kirk died, the right has not stopped politicizing his death. They haven't stopped using it for fuel for their attacks on the left. And so in that climate, you're asking people to not talk about left versus right, but if the left doesn't, then just right gets to make the narrative that they're the violent ones. And it's just not true.
Well, my opinion.
And I can agree with that with Aba. Yeah, the right is choosing to use them a lot for political gain, and I can understand that. There's just a political nature to this. It just is. He was a figure who was speaking about controversial topics. He was not shy. He didn't shy away from saying he was not only religious, but he supported Trump. And I think he was a big reason why Trump got elected. So there's political in nature because of who he is. So you can't get away from that. Even though, again, and I will say it, no problem, I do agree, the right has been leaning a lot towards that and, you know, using that as a political argument.
Opinion is that both just, it's not a left and right thing. It's an evil versus good thing. You know what I mean? And that's, I mean, and then it's me watching you, so I'm expecting that to be that should be the point. You know what I mean? It's like what you're doing is adding just, you know, fuel to the fire to what you're saying everybody else is doing. Like you're highlighting the hypocrisy of people complaining about what the left does, essentially what the right is doing the same thing. You know what I mean? But you know, with that, like I said, with that the Matt Walsh clip, I specified I definitely could tell he was highlighting the left. Well, all that shit is fucking wrong, and I said that in the video.
I agree.
I said that in the video, right? I said that this it's not a left versus right thing. It makes everybody look bad. We need to focus on the motherfuckers actually making things horrible for everybody, the extremists, the radicals, all that. You know what I mean? That's what my focus was. I feel like that's what the focus should be for everybody.
Yeah, and I did have that noted in some of the things that I liked that you did. I did appreciate that you actually said that, because a lot of people are not saying that, or they're just avoiding the topic entirely. But you have to understand, when I'm watching this video, when I'm watching the discourse, I'm looking at things in its totality. So when I'm talking about,
what video are you talking about? When you say you're watching the video, what video?
I think I was looking at a lot of the political coverage in regards to this. I've been looking at the people who are responding, everyone who's been talking about this, and how the public is talking. If you spend time online, they're not talking about this as like both sides. That's not a lot of the discourse. A lot of the discourse, especially from the right, is that they're just saying essentially the left is the violent party. Go check out those comment sections. Go check out a lot of the discourse from the
big... That's going to happen every time that happens. Every time someone from the left does something crazy, they're going to highlight the left. When the right does something, they're going to highlight the fucking right. It just... That comes with the territory.
Right. But it should be noted that we should correct those narratives and say that these are not one-sided things. If you watched our video, we didn't say violence is only right-wing. We said there's plenty of people who've murdered people on the left, from the left. And we said that. But the dominant narrative right now is that left-wingers are the violent ones. And they're obviously, especially with the most recent murder, it makes sense that it's going to be the dominant narrative. But it's important to not let those lies be able to be spread.
Lies. It's a fact. Robert Westman was a gender man, woman. I don't even know that's how you would say that anymore. But regardless, Robert Westman was that shooter. The shooter from, where was it? Was it Texas? No, not Texas. I forget the other one. I'll look it up. But there's been at least the last 3 have been people who are on the left. It's like, and even today you have the Dallas shooting. You think that was somebody on the right? Like, what are we really talking about right now? And we don't have enough details about the Dallas thing, so maybe it could have been somebody on the right, and I won't shy away from that. But let's just be real. Like, a lot of the stuff going on now, the people you hear the most talking on the internet, specifically when we talk about regular folks, and even some of the representatives out there and some people in the Senate, what do they say? They say a lot of wild shit. J.B. Pritzker, perfect example. AOC, Jasmine Crockett, what's the other lady from D.C.? I forget her name, but it'll come to me. But like, these are all people who are saying things that you're like, what the like? That's an elected official saying that shit, you know. And now Trump's not. Trump said at the speech, which I think they get into later, but Trump said something like that, where he's like, I hate my opponents. Yeah, we know, we get it, you know. But at least he says it. You hate your opponents. These people, I mean, I shouldn't even go there. I'll let them get into it, and then I'll give you my response.
And to say, actually, guys, you're wrong. In fact, this year there's been other people who've been killed. You said we were minimizing his death by bringing up these other murders, but those deaths are part of this discussion. The same thing that led to those people being killed is the exact same thing that led to Charlie Kirk being killed. And it's important to know that, because if we don't understand that, then all this is just going to happen again. You said it was different in your video because Charlie Kirk died on camera and nobody was supposed to see that. You remember that you saying that?
Yeah.
Right. To me, I understand that the fact that he died on camera makes it much more graphic, much more in your face. But at the end of the day, murder is murder. Dying is dying. Someone is victimized.
But it's the effect that it has on society is not. It's not the same. In a vacuum, it's the same. But if people were able to see that video until the end of time now,
sure,
right, they're able to see that man go out the way that he did, and knowing up until this, I can't compare someone else that had the amount of influence Kirk had. You know what I mean? And to have, if he hadn't been murdered in front of everyone at once, your analogy, your comparison will be fair, man. But
okay, can I ask you something?
You can't minimize
if Kirk was not killed on camera, if Kirk's not killed on camera, is this situation more or less tragic?
It's less tragic.
So dying on camera makes a murder worse?
No, not the murder worse, but the effect that has on the people is worse because everybody can see it.
It makes it different. But from a moral standpoint, it's the exact same. There's no difference in morality. It's just more shocking.
It's a different conversation. I'm just talking about tragedy. Morality is the same. I'm talking about the effects it's having on society.
Yeah, but if I'm talking about other murders, I'm talking about the moral aspect of it. But that doesn't mean that we can't contextualize it with those other murders. You say it's not comparable, but I disagree. They died for the same reason.
They didn't. And that's where you get it messed. That's where you're getting it twisted, Aba. They didn't die for the same reasons. Charlie Kirk died because he spoke about his beliefs in a way that people disliked, not because he was inflammatory, but because they disliked him, and therefore they took him out. That is a wild thing to happen in America. Maybe in Canada, where you're from, people that shit happens all the time. But here in America, that does not happen. You have people like Nick Fuentes, who says a lot of wild shit, and he has been toning down, but still says a lot of wild shit. You have Ben Shapiro says wild shit. You have, I mean, countless people. You know what? What's his face? Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, AOC again, JB Pritzker, Nancy Pelosi said plenty of wild shit. Chuck Schumer said plenty of wild shit. None of them have been taken out. Charlie Kirk was taken out. And out of all of those people, Charlie Kirk was the most passive, which was the problem. This is what I'm surprised Aba missed this completely. It's crazy that he missed this. I can't believe he missed this.
They died for the exact same reason.
If you had related that way, trying to bring up the similarities and how you conveyed it just now, it would make more sense. But that's not at all how you conveyed it in the video. It came from, you know, a leftist bias type of perspective from my end, that you were trying to minimize it by bringing up other similarities. You didn't bring up you didn't bring anything up about it being moral or same morally. You were just saying, to summarize it, you know, Kirk died, everybody else died, and this happens with political violence.
Yes, because what I'm getting at is not how he died, or like in front of who that he died. What I'm focused on is why was he killed. Okay, so let me say I agree.
You're not focused on why he was killed, because why he was killed is the whole point, is why people are outraged.
With you, you know, let's do a different exercise. Let's say I agree with you. These are different to a degree. So what's your point? We shouldn't contextualize his murder?
Well, in your video, it didn't feel like you were contextualizing. If I felt personally that you contextualized it trying to get to the root of a problem, then we wouldn't be here today. But I felt like your intent was to minimize Kirk's death by bringing up all these things that happened.
I would argue that you are minimizing his death by not contextualizing it properly. If you don't talk about why something happened and how we got here, then all you're doing is just describing a tragedy.
I'm not talking about why. I'm just focused on your video.
Yes, but if you're going to counter my narrative and say that I'm wrong for contextualizing it the way that I did, or you don't like the way I contextualized it.
No, but you're saying you're contextualizing it now. When I watched it, I didn't think you were contextualizing. I just thought that you were minimizing it.
That's fair. I disagree with that. I think I talked about how we got here. I definitely said that in the video. I talked about the fact that there's been a string of political violence over the last 10 years, and that this is not a shocking outcome. Kirk being assassinated is not the craziest thing. There's a reason why he had security. There's a reason why I think he was wearing a bulletproof vest.
He wasn't wearing a bulletproof vest. And this is a perfect example of Aba not doing enough research and speaking about somebody that he didn't know. Now, I wouldn't say that I know everything about Charlie Kirk, but I know certain things that I can understand why people are outraged at this. He wasn't a political person. He might have spoke about political, he might have been involved or trying to get involved with political things, but he was a citizen of the United States, just a regular citizen. He was a business owner. He started Turning Point for a reason, which was to change the narrative of what people believed in, right? To have discussions that were based in facts and were with people who were willing to articulate their points, were also about people who were willing to be challenged on their points, and he was willing to be challenged on his points. There are also things where Charlie changed his opinion, and he didn't look at things the way that he looked at them when he first started. And that's another thing that's never mentioned by a lot of people who stand with Aba and stand and believe in what he was thinking. That's just not a fair assessment of what it is.
There's been threats on these people. So we have to take that into consideration, understand that this is not something that happened that is out of this world. Even Kirk himself realizes this is a possibility. There's a reason why everyone who does these...
I get your point, but that's not at all my argument, bro.
But that's what I was talking about. That's what I was talking about in that video, for sure.
Well, I mean, I didn't receive that on mine. If I felt like you were contextualizing it, then, you know, we're on the same wave as far as, you know, this is what happens when, you know, politics get off the rails. But in the video, like I said, I thought that you were just minimizing it by comparing it to everything else. I didn't feel like there was any contextualizing there, so just got to agree to disagree.
Yeah.
And I've watched the video probably 3 more times because, you know, we're having this conversation today, man, and I didn't get it all that you were contextualizing it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't say that. I was saying those words exactly, contextualizing it, but I think that is what I was doing. But again, we could agree to disagree. So those were, I think, your first two disagreements that you had with me. Yeah, you could definitely let me know some other ones that you had for sure.
And I mean, I just get to the meat and the potatoes now, man, because do you feel like you manufactured a narrative on Kirk by showing those clippets, those snips of him in your video?
Yeah, okay, we can address that because I did have that in my notes as well. I think around like the 20-minute mark, you said I took him out of context, right?
Not even take him out of context. You put your context on it because we let it play. I put the additional clips on it.
Okay, so just for the viewer, there's a clip that we played, maybe 15 seconds of Kirk on a Jubilee panel. He's talking to somebody. This is a panel about Christians versus, or is it right wingers versus lefties? I don't remember what it was.
I don't know, but it was about abortion.
Okay, it was about abortion, right? And Kirk is a very Christian, self-proclaimed Christian. Everybody knows this about him. So in that clip, the woman is asking him a hypothetical where he says, if your 10-year-old daughter was raped, okay, would you force her to keep the child? Is that a fair assessment of the clip?
Yeah.
And then Kirk says yes.
He said yes. The baby will have the baby, or my girl will have the.
Okay,
child.
And then you said that we were kind of dishonest with how we did that. That we clipped him out of context, and then we put our own context, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying you put your own
I think
context.
so.
You didn't put the entire context.
Okay.
Like you said, you led into it by saying, you said I think. I'm not going to speak. I'm going to recite you verbatim, but it was essentially, I think that Kirk has said some disgusting things as well.
Yes,
and
I played that clip.
Videos.
Yeah, so let's just talk about that first clip because I remember you taking that first clip and being really shocked. I think, let me just see here, because I did have that in my notes here. Oh yeah, you said that. You said that was really surprising that you were shocked coming from me, and you called me the king of receipts.
Yeah.
But yes. So that is
real shit, because I rely, but I know when you give somebody shit, you gonna have.
Okay. So how do you feel I took that clip out of context?
Because when I see that it's trying to paint Kirk as a monster because he's going to force his 10-year-old daughter to have a child.
Right. But as somebody who's anti-abortion, that's his stance. He will force his daughter to have the child because he feels as though life is precious or whatever it is. And, he sees the fetus as a life. So he's like, my daughter will have that baby. That's his take.
Yeah, but if you let the rest of the video play, I mean, it's subjective. Everybody's going to feel differently watching that. But if you just have that short video, it makes it seem like he's a monster. I don't care. Anti-abortion. She having a baby. It could be for anything because my way or the highway or whatever the case may be, bro. Everybody's not informed on Kirk and his reasonings why. And if I think that you let the video play and gives you his reasonings why, people would understand it. They may not agree with it, but they'll understand it and they'll take a blow away from how they're initially feeling about him being a monster.
Well, they'll see him still as a monster because no matter how much you explain it from a religious standpoint,
that's your opinion.
Exactly. But that was my whole point. Do you remember what the greater point of that whole section was? That section was about the fact that some people view him as a monster, including me. I don't like the guy. I didn't think his politics were good. That's my personal opinion. I think I'm free to say that. And I played clips that to me showcase his stances on things that I just don't agree with and I think are disgusting. Forcing your 10-year-old daughter to have a baby, okay, that after she was raped, okay, you could say it's great for religious reasons. You could give whatever justification you want. There's nothing in there that took him out of context. His stance was
because if you having that short snippet, people are not going to know why he's doing it. They're just going to know he's doing it. If he gives justification of why, and he gave very clear reasons of why, that's going to make some people look at it different. You're putting this. You know what I mean? Like it's like showing a video of somebody shooting somebody in the head, but just randomly. But you figure out that like killed my mom, then it makes sense.
No, because the people who are following this or people who are even tuning into this stuff know that Charlie is a political speaker who's incredibly Christian. So
you're making that assumption, though, bro.
Exactly. Another assumption.
You're making that assumption because now, since Kirk has died, there are so many people that are just now learning about Kirk. There's so many people that didn't know before. There's so many people that didn't know before. You put that narrative out.
Can I ask you?
This is a big reason why so many people don't like Kirk because they get so many of these short reels taken out of context.
But they're not out of context. Exactly. It's not a context.
They are.
No, it's not. It's not, Stevie. if someone says I'm anti-abortion, I'm a Christian, we know why you don't want an abortion to happen. We don't.
In that clip you put, he didn't say he was Christian though. He
Exactly.
just said, she just gave an example.
You painted him out to be a right wing crazy lunatic, because most people who are against abortion are what? Right wing. Now, you may not agree with that, and that's okay. But to not give him the luxury of allowing him to express his thought process, especially the way that Charlie likes to express himself, is a perfect example of missing the whole context of his point, regardless of why he thinks like that.
Example, and he said no, she can have a baby. He didn't say he was Christian.
This guy was all over the world, all over the news, and he was constantly
making an assumption.
No, I'm not making an assumption. Everybody who saw that clip of him getting murdered knew he was a political speaker who's Christian. There's not a person who didn't see that clip, who didn't see the news reports, who didn't know what he was.
That's wrong. There's about 8 billion people in the world. I'm willing to bet my full bank account that is not accurate. There are people who are not going to know Charlie. Now, that there were a lot more who were in tune with the news and found out who he was, and found out that this happened and knew who he was, for sure. But there were plenty of people who did not know who he was.
You're acting like I took an obscure person.
That's cap. That's not true. That's not true. You can't speak for everybody in the world, dog.
That's not out of context, boss. That's not out of context.
Because I talk to people now that had no idea who the fuck Kirk was. Now they see him on his timeline going,
Right.
and they don't know who the fuck he is. That's
Exactly.
absolutely that's false, bro.
He has the very standard cookie cutter Christian view on it. There's nothing.
Regardless, you're making the assumption that people know, dog, and that's a dangerous game. You got to give them.
That's not an assumption. That's not an assumption, boss. I'm sorry. Anybody who's following this knows he's a Christian political speaker. I'm sorry, but I'm just not buying that. In fact, everyone's been introducing him as such, so we know why he does not like abortion. I don't need to see 5 minutes.
You know, and a lot of people do know. Everybody doesn't know, dog. And you got to be fair and give the reason why. You got to give the justification why. If you just say he's doing this, they go, oh, he's a motherfucker because he's gonna force a 10-year-old to have a fucking daughter. But if you go let the shit play and he gives the fucking girl the business of why he made her look stupid.
Yeah.
To me, I mean,
but that's because you're probably anti-abortion. Am I right?
No, I don't know. I could care less. I respect his stance. I'm not pro. I'm not anti. I respect his stance. I don't agree with it, of course, but I respect it because he's standing on the team.
Okay. But my point still 100% stands. At the end of the day, if you were going to force a 10-year-old to have a baby because you believe abortion is wrong, it's okay for people to say you're a disgusting person, and other people can agree with your stance and say you're cool. My entire point was
that wasn't my argument. My argument was you took about the context. People can say what they want to say. But
okay.
Exactly. Context, you're manufacturing a narrative.
I'm not manufacturing a narrative. The narrative was very clear. He's a Christian man. He's against abortion. Super basic.
You didn't have Christian in that clip, though.
I didn't have to because everyone knows who he is. But
everybody does not know. Look
okay,
at
we'll agree to disagree.
Yeah,
we'll agree to disagree. But I think that's not taking someone out of context. If someone says I'm a Muslim, if someone says I'm a Muslim and I'm a no. I think you're reaching. I think you're definitely reaching. But it's okay.
How am I reaching?
You're reaching.
How am I reaching?
He's the most viral person right now.
The narrative, bro. The girls. He said, "I'm gonna force the 10-year-old to have a fucking baby." That's it.
No.
That's all everybody gonna see. There's no more context.
Yeah.
You didn't give a motherfucker the opportunity to explain why.
No. He's the most viral person in the world. People know he's a political commentator. They know he's Christian.
Just because he's viral doesn't mean you know what's going on or what he was doing, what he was talking about. A lot of times people go viral and people don't know who the fuck the person is. That's to me, that's just the cockiness of Aba trying to say, oh no, people knew who he was because, of course they knew who he was. Like, he's a political figure. Like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything, bro? Like, that's not even okay. That's not an okay thought process. That's wild. How do you not see that that's wild? Oh, no, everyone knew who he was. Maybe now more people than before knew who he was for sure. But there are plenty of people you see in the comments that say, I didn't know who he was. And, now that I've gone back and looked at some of his videos, this is saddening that this happened. Do you discount them as well?
I'm not buying that, but we'll agree to disagree. That's not taking someone out of context. If you're not an unknown person, we know where you're standing. We know what you're there for. But we'll agree to disagree. This is another point you made, and this is one I thought was crazy. You played the other clips of Kirk. You kind of said there's nothing bad about this when he said he wanted Biden to be executed or given the death penalty. You don't think that people should hate somebody like that, or some people might hate somebody for that reason? For saying violence?
But see, okay, and this is where I would have countered with, There's a difference between saying someone deserves a death penalty, and again, this is where Abba loses this argument because it's like, oh well, do you think Charlie Kirk saying that Biden should be tried and um should whatever for treason, right? Should be charged with treason and given the death penalty? Well, guess what happens when you're charged with treason and you're given a death penalty? There's a fucking trial. There's a trial of your peers. There's evidence of what you did, what you didn't, or what you didn't do in order to prevent the treason, and therefore you're convicted by what? A group of your peers. Which Charlie was not convicted by a group of his peers. Somebody got on a fucking roof and decided to blow his fucking neck out. That's what happened. So this is where the lefty of Abba comes out, and I've said it before. I mean, I didn't say it, I've said it before, but he said it himself. I'm a lefty. I know I'm a lefty. Exactly. And this is where the so not logical aspect of this argument comes out.
Violent things like that.
Yeah, that's their opinion.
Another point that you made, I played a second clip, and this is probably one of the wilder clips. A young man goes up to Charlie Kirk during that debate, and he says to him, hey, what do you think about school lunches for kids? And Charlie laughs him. He says, there's no starvation in America. We have an obesity problem. Nobody here is going without food. And then you agreed with him. You said there's no starvation in America. Go get food stamps. You can get food at churches. There's no reason to starve. Do you remember that?
Yeah, there's no reason to starve in America. It's like 1% of households have like I guess, technically a hunger issue, bro. But
See, and this is where I disagree with Stevie, because if we do the math of 1% of households who, let's just say, have this issue, that means that's 3.5 million Americans, because there's about 350 million people in the U.S. So again, this is where I say sometimes Stevie is looking at things from a perspective where he's not realizing, like, okay, wait a second, this is actually a valid point. This is one of those discussions, or this part of the discussion is the part where I definitely didn't agree with Charlie, and I haven't done more research on what his thought process was as far as this, but I know part of his thought process was the fact that he didn't want the government paying for school lunches. That's what his issue was mainly. Now, to figure out how we get around the kids who don't have the ability, who don't have nutrition at home, that's a separate argument. But here they conflate the two, and that's the problem that I find with this discussion, that I would have made the distinction if I was debating Abba, saying, hey, hold on a second, wait, you gotta understand what Charlie's point was. I don't agree with it myself, but I can see that the whole premise of his point was, hey, we need to stop getting the government to pay for school lunches, because that money comes from us, the taxpayer. And a lot of times, if I worked in government myself, and wherever there was government regulations, there was always what? Misappropriation of funds. And I've seen it firsthand. I've told the story on the YouTube channel before. So yeah, again, this is just one of those examples where I can still agree with Abba and disagree with Stevie, but I think that he didn't bring up the right part of the topic here.
but people are not starving to death in America, bro. Motherfuckers are fat as hell.
Okay.
That's a fact.
And see, this is the problem I
People are
have with
fat,
like
bro.
people who are pro-life, and not you specifically, but people like Charlie Kirk. They're so obsessed with keeping fetuses alive, they pretend it's like this big virtue. And then
That's
when
a
a child is
wild
born,
thought
they're
right
like,
there.
fuck you, your
That's
parents take
wild.
care of you. It's actually probably one of the most hypocritical, and this is why I think Charlie Kirk is probably a shitty person to me, is that he spent all this time being anti-abortion, but when it comes to every government initiative that's meant to protect kids and keep them good, he was always against it. And to me, it's like, what's the fucking point of keeping this fetus alive if when it comes out, you're like, yo, fuck you, kid. And that's what he did. He said that guy was...
He said, fuck you, kid?
No, he did it, but he might as well have, when he's constantly championing everything that's anti-public sector, or sorry, government-involved taking care of kids. Like,
And he doesn't. He doesn't. He agrees with there being some level of social programs to help people, but the amount of social programs that we have is ridiculous. We're spending a ridiculous amount of money on social programs, which allow people to do what? They allow people to, and yes, some of them benefit people, but they allow people to be part of the job market. There are people who are literally surviving solely off of the government. And when people survive off of the government, you know who they're really surviving off of? Us. The people who actually go to work and have to pay $1 gazillion in taxes because we have all these social services, when some of that money could be appropriated in better categories. Now, the other part of this argument is the fact that, well, the government doesn't appropriate funds very well, and I agree with that. That's why this is a multifaceted discussion. I would even say the government from having control, fund small boards in certain cities, right, that are made up of people who live in the community to appropriate the funds. That's how I think that's a better way of doing it than just saying, oh no, we got to give it to the federal government and the state governments and let them pick. Like, the state governments suck.
Like even you saying no, even you saying there's no starvation is like so disingenuous. If you just Google it, there's like so many kids today here in America. You could look it up the statistics that have malnutrition, that have food scarcity, that have all these problems. It stunts their growth. It fucks them up in terms of their academic success. And for you guys to sit there and think that food lunches for kids is a crazy idea and parents should take care of them. Some parents are dog shit. Some parents don't take care of their kids. And so that's why these school lunches happen, so that kids who go to school get a meal. But people like Charlie Kirk, and then you did the same thing, are like, oh, the parents take care of it. That's fucking stupid. And I'm like, do you guys even Google this stuff? Do you guys even look into it? But you speak confidently against this stuff that's hurting hundreds and thousands of kids. And I'm like, I don't get it.
So another point that I would have brought up, I would have let Aba go on his rant, and I would have brought up to him, okay, so you want to fight for these children of parents who are shitty parents. I understand that. I don't have a problem with that. But does that mean that I have to pay the price because people are being shitty parents? Now, this is one of those situations where you have to have a honest conversation. And the honest conversation is, if you can't feed your kid starves. Is that fucked up? 100%. Is that how we should manage things? I don't think so. I think there's a happy medium. But to sit here and say that, oh, well, the government needs to take care of these things, these programs are helping hundreds of thousands of children. Well, you know what would help hundreds of thousands of children? Giving parents the ability to get better jobs. Giving parents the ability to be more informed within their community. The government would be better off providing services that help people in these communities who are not only low income but don't have the access to education at the levels that other people in other communities do, by providing services that teaches them how to be a better human being. Now, you again, this is where layers matter. Now you could go down the layer. Well, our government's not here for the people, the government's here for the companies and these big conglomerates and the wealthy and the elite. And yes, I would agree with you. We're fighting about a topic that the problem really comes from a multifaceted layer, but we're choosing to blame it on the fact that Charlie Kirk spoke about school lunches in a 10-second clip in a way that you didn't like. Again, this is where disingenuous conversations thrive. And I think Aba is not using that thought process. And if he is using that thought process, he's relying on the fact that Stevie, even though he is a good creator and is well versed in his topics, isn't extremely well versed in this topic. I would be different.
I'll ask you a question.
And you see how he resets himself in his chair and, like, you know, look at his look, like, yeah, got him. What's he gonna do? Like, you got him because he doesn't understand the topic he doesn't comprehend the topic the way that I comprehend the topic, or the way that other folks who are defensive of Charlie Kirk in this perspective can understand the topic. Even though I don't agree with what he said, which is ironic because I'm the perfect example of someone who didn't have the level of sympathy that maybe some people who were close to him or some people who were on the right wanted people to have. But I also didn't have the inhumane reaction of celebrating his death, which is ridiculous. I wouldn't celebrate anybody's death. I don't care who it is, especially somebody who's willing to have the peaceful conversation and wanted people to come together.
Which one is higher, the amount of abortions in America or the amount of starving children in America?
The amount of starving kids in America.
Oh, that's cap.
That's cap? Did you Google it? Did you Google it?
I don't need to Google it.
You know what? I'm going to
facts.
Google it.
But you know what? Facts don't care about how you feel about it. I need you to Google it.
Okay.
Go Google.
Somebody Google it in the chat.
Okay.
But I'm not. Let me figure out the best way to articulate this, because you have this anger towards Kirk and me and whomever else because we don't support government. Not even support government assistance. We're saying the parents should do it. But in the reality of the problem, bro, there's so many different ways that people can eat outside of their parents. There's, food stamps.
So I Googled it, and it says, and Abba is correct on this, but there were 1.14 million abortions performed in 2024. estimate indicate that millions of children in the U.S. face food insecurity, and the child poverty rate remains high with 16.9%. So, poverty rate is different than starving children. So there's room for interpretation here. I would even fight. Let's just see how many total children how many total children live in poverty. Let's see what Google says. In 2023, just under 10 million children, okay, live in poverty. But again, and this is where the nuances come in, and you have to understand, like, because you live in poverty, does that mean that you're starving? And if we're gonna speak about starving, what's your definition of starving, Abba? Are you talking about people who are emaciated and dying of starvation, like the millions of people that die in Africa, or hundreds of thousands of people who die in Africa every day? Because if we're not talking about emaciation, if we're not talking about literal starving, then you would be wrong. The numbers would be wrong. There are more abortions than there are people starving to death. If we're gonna be specific, this is where I think Stevie should have challenged him a bit more.
Churches, charities, bro. Like, there's no reason for somebody to starve.
So do you want a 7-year-old or 8-year-old to go to get food stamps or go to church
Like that's all.
and get food?
Their parents should go.
What if the parent doesn't want to go? What if their parent doesn't want to go?
You saw in the video.
They should lose a child.
I'll be jealous when I see the amount of money these people have on food stamps, bro. They be running these EBTs up $400, $500, $600, bro. Like, there's no excuse for somebody to be broke or to be hungry, unless they got, like, they're picky, they're bougie about what the fuck they want to put in their body, dog. But beggars can't be choosers, bro. Like, you can't have no filet mignon when you can't afford it, dog.
Okay,
we live in a capitalistic country, dog. It is what it is.
Let's take 2 steps back. All right, let's take 2 steps back. Do you agree with there's a lot of bad parents out there?
Absolutely.
Do you know that there's a lot? Hold up. Do you agree that there's a lot of parents who neglect those children?
Yes, I agree as well.
So do you think that those kids should suffer because they have bad parents?
No.
Okay,
I don't think they should, but bad shit happens.
See, and this is where another counter I would have made if I was Stevie. I don't think they should suffer, but I also don't think that we, the rest of the people who are conducting ourselves like a productive member of society, should suffer either. There should be a happy medium. There should be a place where we can figure this out. And unfortunately, because there are people like Abba who just believe, no, well, the government should take care of it. Well, no, there needs, these social programs need to exist, because if they don't exist, people are going to suffer. Like, bro, there's got to be a happy medium. And unfortunately, one of the other things that I always talk about as well is that here in the United States, we have this issue with illogical empathy, this inability to understand that we can't solve everything. Some people have to suffer in some instances. This is sad truth, and I would wish we could change it, but we can't change it until we all come to the realization that there are bigger powers at play. There are bigger things going on. If we all got together as a community, we could definitely fix this. We could, build more farmland. We could farm more. There's a lot of things we could do to help each other. But in the current situation, in the current way the system is built, as far as capitalism, some people have to hurt in order for the majority to thrive. It just is what it is. Should it be like that? No, it should not. And should things be better? Yes, they should. But it's just like, we have to have that real conversation about it. And what are you going to do to thrive? What are you going to do to make it better? Should really be the question.
So wait, you're just going to let kids suffer when the...
No, I'm not going to let them, bro, because there's other avenues. Like, if they're going to school, this is a hypothetical.
Well, no, hold on. What did you say? If they're going to school, what? If they're going to school, they can get a free lunch there?
If they're going to school, I'm assuming that teachers are aware. They can see someone losing weight.
But that's what the program's for, Stevie. That's what I'm saying. The program is meant to give kids lunches at school.
No, that's not where I'm going with it. I'm talking about, like, teachers making calls to get, the correct parties involved to address a child, to find a potential food for them, so they can take advantage of the surplus of food that is available for people in these situations. Like, the homeless don't go hungry, bro. They can go get a meal if they want to get a meal.
You're comparing children to homeless. Like, what are we talking about? See, I want y'all to just think about it. So there's shitty parents out there, okay? And you want teachers to call the shitty parents to be like, hey, be better parents. Or you want to call child services? You want to call child services? You want to put them in foster care?
Yeah, this is the minutia of the argument. Like, you're now arguing at a base level that is, like, there are many other things that are happening above this that would that would solve this problem, or at least bring some solution to the problem way better than this. Yeah, can teachers get involved? Of course, but then what does that mean? That means they have to call government entities, and then what does that do? The parents lose the children, and what does that do? Then if the parents lose the children, where do they go? A government institute, and guess who pays for all this shit? We do. It has to be a different conversation. This is the minutia of this conversation. Now, there's a whole nother hour. There's a whole nother half hour of this, and maybe I'll do a second one. Hey, yeah, what are you talking about? I mean, we're talking about a lot of things, but we were mainly talking about, I really was making this video